live. Facebook, check. LinkedIn, check. YouTube, check. X, check. Instagram, check. Hey, Mummy Hack, thanks for joining us on Instagram. You know, I always have to check at the Instagram people separately on different technology. Are we all good to go here? Don't forget to give us your comments as we go and questions for a very special show today. Welcome, everybody. Let's get started. Episode 263 on August 21st. Welcome to Mornings with Scott, the best damn business show for small and medium-sized businesses on the planet. We have good news. I have very good news for you today. It's Friends on Friday today. Friends on Friday on Wednesday, if I could steal a Bill Burr. So we have a special guest coming in today, which I think you're really going to like. We're going to talk about financing in maybe globally, maybe North America for medium and small businesses. It's going to be fun, and it's going to be insightful for you. So as I keep telling you on this show, we have a business show that I started about a month ago every morning, and I'm looking for business news that we could draw lessons from. And like the fool that I am, I started this in the middle of a political year, an election year, and so all the news is political. And so we started a segment yesterday called our Kamala of the Day. As we all know, Kamala is going to be the next president. It appears that way. And so yesterday, we started the Kamala of the Day, and Zero Hedge on X reported yesterday that out of the DNC convention in Chicago, we learned 3 new policies. One is a 28% tax. So a big tax hike. Did you see Mr. Wonderful on all the media yesterday? Losing his mind. He kept saying over and over, I don't want to be partisan. I don't want to be partisan. But she announced a 44%, not she, surrogates announced a 44% capital gains tax. Huge increase that effectively just reverses the Trump tax cuts plus a bunch more. And for good measure, a 25% tax on unrealized capital gains. What does that mean? How does that even work? It means you have an asset, it goes up, and you haven't sold it, so you don't have any cash. It just went up on paper, and you're supposed to pay 25% tax on that. Where are you getting the cash? Where does the cash come from for this? Well, the cash comes from you either need to sell it if it's liquid, or you need to probably provide some sort of evidence that it didn't go up, which is going to create an industry of people writing business valuation and asset valuation reports that are, let's just say, a little depressed that you can send into the government. It's if you're a business owner in the US, mid-size or smaller, you need a strategy. You need a strategy, as I keep telling you over and over every day, to survive the coming chaos. It's been bad. It's been really bad the last 4 years, but it's just going to get worse. I think it's going to get worse. And to survive that, you need to focus. You need to focus on your priorities. You need to focus on nothing but your priorities. You need to control your costs and stay close to your customers and to your suppliers. You need to understand what's going on in their businesses as well. This is a battle, folks. This is going to be a battle. We need to focus, and you need to make sure that you have the proper financing partners for your own liquidity going forward. And we have a special guest on that coming up in a minute. We've been doing the Naval thread from X, how to get rich without getting lucky. I've told you on the past couple of episodes, Naval Ravikant is an entrepreneur, investor, philosopher, best known for a co-founder of AngelList. He's invested in Twitter, Uber, Yammer, more than 100 companies, and widely known as one of the smartest wise guys around. And he has published a thread on X. You can look it up at Naval, Naval, and we've been covering some of these here on the show. And so let's continue on. The internet has massively broadened the possible space of careers. Most people haven't figured this out yet. Uninspiring to me, this particular one, but it's true. There's all sorts of new careers, jobs, business opportunities, investment opportunities available in the digital world. The internet's created new growth opportunities. But also, I think here's an important part that we often miss is you can, as Elon Musk says, you don't need to go to school anymore. You can educate yourself on anything over the internet and become an expert at that if you put the work in. Did I mention I've created a course, a business course for small and medium-sized businesses? And that is available now for pre-sale. It's released, first module is released September 15th, which I'm pretty excited about it. Go to thescottsinclair.com and you should be able to find some references there. Naval's second point of the day: play iterated games. All returns in life, whether in wealth, relationship, or knowledge, come from compound interest. This is, I think, the smartest thing ever. I talk about this. Did you know that Mornings with Scott is on the Winning Momentum podcast? We put it on the Winning Momentum podcast. You know why it's called Winning Momentum? Exactly because of this. Because what I try to focus on when turning around businesses, creating better income, raising capital, is a plan that improves small little wins every day to improve your business, to improve your life, and they compound. That is winning momentum. That's exactly why this show is called that. Third point: pick business partners with high intelligence, energy, and above all, integrity. Absolutely. Business partnerships fail more than marriages. And one reason for that is that businesses in general just fail. We've talked about the negative stats on this podcast before, but another is that people pick the business partners. They pick their business partners when they're becoming entrepreneurs and starting new businesses for comfort, for fear, for feeling of not wanting to be alone in this terrifying experience. And well, that's not a good way to go about bringing in a partner. Well, Mornings with Scott has been going on now for close to a month, I think. I think this week is our fourth week. And looking for business stories, I've talked about Boeing probably 5 times during this 4-week period. And as you know, we talked that Boeing has faced several challenges in recent years, which have impacted its reputation, operations, financial performance. And, if we were just trying to do a short, quick list of problems with Boeing's in the last 5, 6, 7 years, the Lion Air flight crash, the 737 MAX, which is what I end up flying all the time on my Canadian airline. So that doesn't make me happy. Anyways, it's taking off shortly. This is back in 2018. Shortly after takeoff, kills all 189 people on board. Ethiopian Airlines, the exact same plane, exact same problem, kills all 157 on board. Following that, they ground the 737 MAX and they go, hey, we got some software problems and regulatory problems that go along with that. So they tried to fix that. We're not so sure that it got fixed. 787 Dreamliner problems. That's the bigger version of the plane. In where I fly, it's got lay down cabins up front, which is kind of cool. Problems with gaps in the fuselage, multiple inspections, delayed deliveries, reduced production rates, increased FAA oversight, legal actions and criminal charges from the US DOJ, $2.5 billion settlement for fraud and conspiracy involving the certification process around the 737 MAX. June 2024, we've talked about this a couple of times. They launched their new spaceship in conjunction with NASA, but the Boeing launched their spaceship. I forget what it was called. I think it was the SS Minnow, and they were on a 3-hour cruise and never came back. And so to this day, we have 2 astronauts stranded on the International Space Station, literally waiting for Elon to go pick them up in February and bring them home. And NASA says they can't trust the SS Minnow to bring those astronauts home. And Boeing's press release said, nah, we're all good. We're all good. It's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. So it just keeps going on with NASA. Wall Street Journal reports yesterday that Boeing finds a crack in the structure of its new 77X test jet. Shares fell. And I'm just going to pick up the speed on this because we have a guest waiting. But shares fell on Boeing yesterday, 5%. The company said it would ground its 4-plane test fleet while it replaces the faulty component and sorts out what went wrong. Where do we go? The component is called the thrust link, which is part of the structure that connects the engine to the airplane. I'm no engineer. That seems relevant to me. It connects the engine to the plane, and when they were done the test flight, they found cracks and that the thing was just falling off. Boeing said, quote, it did not work as designed. I actually see this as a positive. I think the testing process is to find these problems. I'm glad that they did it. I'm glad that they found the problem before I start flying on this 777X. Why are we talking about this? What is the lessons for your business? Boeing became one of the top defense suppliers in the world, top supplier in the world to the global airline industry, also along with Airbus. A shout out to Airbus, who I produce parts for. Revenue in 2023 was about 75 billion, if I can trust the artificial intelligence. But they've lost their way. And they lost their way. I talked about this on the show before, because when things were going awesome, they announced multiple competing values, largely around social issues, which is all great. But you can't have competing values. You can't have, our value is quality, but our value is also this, when those values often compete. When you're heading into times of trouble, when I talk about focusing and I talk about being in a recession, no matter what the data may say in an election year, when things are scaling back and you have liquidity problems, you need to focus on your priorities, and you need to communicate to your employees that you have a singular value. All other values may be really well-intentioned, no problem with that. But if they conflict with the singular value, in the Boeing's case, it ought to be quality, one would think, employees don't know what to do. That is leadership. So there's my Boeing section. Let's see if we can call up my guest here. Doing? There we go. James Poston, from Managing Director of eCapital. James, if you were financing Boeing, would you have underwriting problems?
Yeah, I think character would be one of the big ones if you think about the finances. At the end of the day, I think I echo what you said. Right, you have to have focus, and you can't have competing values at the end of the day. Your core values have to be your core values, and you have to live and breathe them at the end of the day. But yeah, there'll be some challenges for sure. Be a fun field exam.
Yeah. eCapital. So, hey, James, I just looked at your website yesterday, looked through a couple of press releases, like from the last 3 weeks. eCapital provides $15 million facility to support water brands growth through accounts receivable and inventory financing. eCapital ranks in the Inc. 5000 as one of America's fastest growing private companies for the second consecutive year. So you guys are exploding. Transportation Leaders secures $20 million in factoring facility with eCapital. eCapital doubles down on startup success, upsizes invoice factoring facility to $5 million for thriving international food distributor. You guys are on fire in a space that is exactly for what this show is for. And so I'm super excited to have you on board. We had a guy on maybe 2 weeks ago, a fellow by the name of Jeffrey Hiscock. You ever heard of this guy, James?
I know Jeff very well.
Of course you do. So Jeff tells us, and I think this is my experience as well, is that from a borrower's perspective, from an entrepreneur's perspective, it's treacherous waters out there looking for financing these days, because a lot of the funding parties, not the big Schedule A banks in Canada or in the US, but the private financing, small business, medium-sized business lenders, a lot of them don't have any money right now. They're going through their own troubles. And Jeff was describing scenarios of potential borrowers getting term sheets, paying fees, and at the end of the day, there's no deal because the lender's got its own issues. Yet here you guys are pumping out money left, right, and center. Tell us about eCapital and what's going on there.
Well, thanks, Scott. eCapital is a business that's grown predominantly as a result of an acquisition strategy that we implemented, which has allowed us to kind of enter into kind of three distinct verticals. We have our factoring group that provides small, medium-sized enterprise businesses with factoring solutions up to 50 million, really focused on receivables. We'll do factoring, full notification, non-notification. We have our asset-based lending group, which is senior revolvers, AR and inventory, a lot of the stuff that you and I have talked about in the years we've known each other. And then we have our healthcare financing group, which really specializes in providing senior revolvers to private nursing homes and private hospitals based on Medicare and Medicaid receivables. So that allows us to have a diversified portfolio, which puts us in a position where we're a much more attractive business to what I'll say institutional money is, right, from a banking perspective. So echoing what Jeff was talking about, you look at the emergence of private debt and private credit, we have dry powder. We're supported by a very, very large bank syndicate who values not only what we're trying to do from a diversification strategy, but appreciates our use of technology in order to support small, medium-sized businesses. That's really kind of where our focus is. We're North America wide. We also have operations in the UK. So it provides us with an ability to kind of structure transactions that not a lot of our competition can.
So you are, for this, we have a diverse audience, but if you're a medium and small business owner in the US or in Canada, eCapital, it sounds to me, James, has pretty much every product available that you might want from a senior financing perspective, apart from perhaps term loans. Is that true?
Yeah, term loans and leverage, right? We really focus on collateral, right? We're a collateral-based lender at the end of the day. We're current asset focused. Is kind of what we want to look at. We help support working capital and liquidity problems.
But I bet you if somebody came to you and there was a term piece, you would have partners that you would try to work with on that, depending on jurisdiction and industry and all those sorts of things.
Of course. I think the most important thing that we try to do is to be creative in supporting a business, right? And understanding kind of what the story is behind the number, right? I spent a lot of time analyzing financials like we all do in this industry and space. But the most important thing that I always try to get from a business owner is the qualitative part of it, right? Give me the story. The numbers tell me one story, but what is actually the story of the business? What actually happened? And looking past the numbers, you tend to be able to put together creative solutions.
I have a specific question or two to ask you, but before I do, in the middle of what you said, did you say you're financing U.S. healthcare receivables?
Yep, Medicare, Medicaid.
Okay, Medicare, Medicaid. So not private receivables.
You will look at it. I'm not an expert in that space. I don't pretend
I won't push you on it. I will just say that I've said this on X a couple years ago. So my father in Detroit went into a U.S. hospital without insurance for surgery. And I'm going to make up the numbers because I don't remember. But my mother was calling me and she says it's like $38,000, right? And they're looking for the insurance. I said, well, tell them you don't have insurance. We have to private pay. And she comes back. She says, okay, well, now they said they'll take $18,000 on private pay. How long do we want it financed over? And I said, no, go back and tell them I'm just going to put it on my credit card. I don't need it financed over. And she came back and said, they'll take $1,200. I don't have the numbers exactly right, but that was pretty much the quantum. And so, first of all, I was thinking, wow, what a fraud on the insurance company, number one. And number two, how could you ever finance that receivable? Like, they're just making up.
Yes. So, as I said, I'm not an expert in it. About it, I have the guy.
I don't. Whenever I meet somebody in the finance industry that is loosely related to healthcare, I like to tell that story and get their comments.
If someone calls me stuff looking for something to do with healthcare, I just send an email over and put them in touch with Steve Silver.
So, James, I reached out to you not only because you're a great guy and we know each other, and I think that you guys are putting out money in an environment when people are not putting out money, but specifically, you had a press release on an actual deal. By the way, I sent you a link last night to some guy who advertising a term sheet. He's not even. It's not even a closed deal. It's like, hey, we're pleased to announce we issued a term sheet.
That was an interesting one at the end of the day, right? I guess to your point, I think a lot of people are struggling to put money on the street, right? And therefore, I guess marketing is marketing at the end of the day.
So this release, I'm not sure. It says it was out of Miami. Maybe that's just your head office. I don't know. But that you provided $3 million in a factoring line of credit to a Canadian mining consortium out of receivership.
Yep.
So I reached out to you on this because I just wanted some flavor on that. I've never heard of a US based factorer getting into Canadian mining at all.
Yeah.
Receivables, and receivables implies there's some sort of offtake arrangement. And I obviously you can't get into the details of this, it's confidential with your borrower. But to me, and then receivership, which means you're not just like out of the box on something that's completely troubled. This shows sophistication to understand what's going on. It shows a willingness to look at things that are not normal, because I bet you're not highly focused on the mining sector in Canada. And it shows a willingness to get things done. Can you talk about that for us?
Sure. Yeah, that was an interesting deal. What ended up happening? I'll talk about the macroeconomics as kind of why they found themselves in the situation they did and how we got involved. This was a group of companies, right? A consortium of mining services companies that were supporting some of the largest mines up in Northern Ontario. They suffered kind of three things, right? There's always a triggering event, right? So they suffered as a result of a shutdown at one of their larger projects, which obviously impacted their revenue. They then had a number of projects that were delayed, so that impacted their revenue. And at the same time, one of their core values, and I think something we always believe in, is people. They maintain their overhead costs by continuing to support their workers. So they had declining revenue with, non-reducing expenses, which then obviously resulted as a number of times to strains on cash, which resulted in the CRA arrears kind of going up. And what ended up happening is the Schedule 1 bank, rightfully so, I think, did what most banks would have done, and they went for an interim receivership. And I hadn't seen an interim receivership, Scott, in probably a decade.
Really? Yeah.
Not like interim, not true receivership, right?
Yeah.
They put in an interim receiver who controlled kind of the business and kind of was supporting them. And it goes back to one of your lessons that you were talking about, right? Which was supporting yourself with smart people. They didn't necessarily have the strongest internal control and financial control in place. And so I was brought in by the term lender that was providing long-term financing to their real estate along with some equipment. And we came in and we understood what was going on. We understood the story. And I really believed in the business owners and the character of the individuals, and that they had a plan, going back to another thing you said, that they had a plan in terms of kind of what it is they were going to do. So we're partnering with a long-term lender. We introduced them to the right kind of interim CFO. We supported them through the hiring of a new controller. So we kind of boxed off that internal control and financial control, which allowed us to develop a plan with the government and put us into a situation. It took a little bit longer to fund than I thought it was going to take. They also had a BCAP loan, which are really, really difficult when you're transitioning out of the bank into the alternative space, where we're really focused on collateral to generate. They tend to suck up the excess availability I typically would generate in a business. But we were able to structure something with all the lenders that allowed us to kind of come in and support them. And last I spoke with them, things are going well. It's shutdown season up north, as we all know, here in Canada. And they do an awful lot of shutdown work, and they seem to be kind of getting through and margining additional liquidity out of our facility than they currently have with the bank. So it was
just for the audience, the shutdown season in northern Canada in the mining and energy sector is because you can't get to the site until it's frozen, because otherwise it's just a swamp. And so they have to wait till it freezes up there, and then they can go back to work. That's sort of the way that works. James, talk to me. I want to ask you about the interim CFO you mentioned and the change of controller, and not just why I wasn't recommended personally for that job, but rather one of my top 10 lists on how to finance a troubled business is to admit up front that you had trouble. Right. Don't gloss that over. Here's the trouble. And then make a change in your people. That means getting rid of the people that didn't do the right job, or augmenting the team with whatever deficiency there is. Because if you can't communicate to the market that you've changed something, why? It always comes down to a guy like James thinking, okay, well, why now? Why is this business going to improve now? It's bumped along forever. It's been in receiverships. Like, what's different? Why am I getting on this train? You have a view on that?
Yeah, no, you had it right. So That's the small part. The long-term lender is the big part, Scott. So you can go talk to them about why you didn't get the phone call, and we can talk about that offline.
Okay.
No, I think that people are the most important asset any company has, right? And when someone's not performing their duties, the failure of a lot of businesses I've worked with, and I've worked with hundreds of businesses, looked at thousands of businesses in my career, is exactly that, right? Is not making a change quick enough, right? And not understanding that you have to make the change. And sure, there's going to be a period of time where they've got to get up to speed. But if you get the right person in that's smart and understands your industry, you can get them going pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
Like mining
Yeah.
services is fairly specialized. You know, if they had said, "Oh, James, you've got this great interim receiver coming in," they specialize in beverage companies, that would have been like, no, probably not the right guy. But they brought in someone that kind of understood the problem right away and immediately started tackling it, right? Solution number one, let's get a payment plan, right? Like let's start kind of going through the checklist. But as you know, change management is one of the hardest things for any business to kind of go through. And you've got to bring in people that specialize in it in order to kind of support them through it.
Yeah, exactly. And you need to communicate to a lender, a prospective new lender, that you take this seriously and you know that you need to change. You're not just giving lip service to it. James, you're in a position where you see not only in your portfolio, I assume globally, but also new business deals every single day. I assume you're in a unique position where you can see the struggles that small and medium-sized businesses are going through with the economy today, notwithstanding the data being released by both governments in an election year. What are you seeing?
I think it's difficult right now for the lot of small and medium-sized enterprises. You use the dreaded R word. We're in a recession. We've been in a recession now for quite a long time. You know, we support the transportation industry. We do an awful lot in the trucking space. I always say truckers lead you into a recession, and they will always lead you out of a recession. I think the challenge that you're seeing is a lot of band-aids were put on businesses during COVID as a result of access to the government funding, and people kind of were able to bump along. And now as we're coming out of that and you're having people ask for the money back or delays or whatever it may be, you're putting a lot of stress on businesses from their working capital perspective, right? Because going back to what you were saying with, you know, where's the cash going to come from on this now fictitious, your capital gains has gone up and you have to write a check, right? You know, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is king. And if you don't have the liquidity to impact your change and you don't have the cash to do it, you don't have a lot of options. I think certain industries are certainly feeling it more than others. You know, trucking
100%.
one of them. You know, staffing, manufacturers, distributors are struggling with it. And I think as a result of that, the banks are kind of having to look at their own portfolios and are taking hard looks around what it is that they can and cannot, you know, rehabilitate or resuscitate or whatever it may be that they want to look at. And so more opportunities are coming into the alternative finance space, but you just have to be willing to understand the story and roll up your sleeves and really be a partner, right? Like you got to sit around the table, right? You can't just show up, you know, when it's nice. You got to be there when it's raining, and you got to be holding their hands in the process.
And vice versa. The company needs to treat you that way as well.
Communication's key in everything, right? You have to speak. You know, you have to be able to communicate and articulate your plan, what it is you're trying to achieve, and then give credence to it by pulling together a model that, you know, at least, which is a best guess, right? But at least can kind of give the lender some comfort that says, okay, you got a plan. I believe in the plan. We generate enough availability to support your plan. You know, you've been forthright and upfront. Okay, I'm in. Let's see if we can make this happen together.
James, how do businesses, entrepreneurs reach out to you and talk about their prospective deals?
You know, I think from a lot of times, you know, LinkedIn has been a great resource for me, just like it probably has for you in your career. I get a lot of from that way. But at the end of the day, a lot of what I end up doing is getting work through advisors, right? You know, go and find someone that can help structure your plan in order to kind of support you through it. And they can kind of come to myself and other people in the market, right, in order to kind of find the best options for you. But I'm a deal junkie, Scott, as you know. I am more than happy to talk business or opportunities left and right. I pride myself on quick no's because I don't think long drawn out maybe serve anyone in the business space.
your website is eCapital.com.
Yep.
If you shift your body a little bit, people will be able to
Oh,
see
yeah.
the banner. There you go,
There it is.
eCapital.
Yeah.
Just put a .com after that. Anything else you want to cover while we were on here?
No, I just want to say, I really appreciate the opportunity. And, while it is difficult out there for small, medium-sized businesses, these people are serial entrepreneurs. They're willing to roll up their sleeves and fight. And, they're the backbone of the economy. And I love working with them all day and every day. Their advisors included. So, keep on going, keep on pushing, find the right people, find the right lenders, and, you'll get through this at the end of the day. Election years or not, right?
And call, if you're looking for money, call the people that have money.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
so that's why we went through this through this episode and through those press releases. Hey everybody, did you know that I've been doing coaching sessions for entrepreneurs and small businesses, and for a couple of people I've been doing free coaching sessions as long as I can get the content recorded. And there are 2 coaching sessions right now from the last couple of weeks on the YouTube channel of the Winning Momentum podcast. You can look that up there. And they're not live, they're pre-recorded, but they're on the YouTube channel, the full half-hour sessions, in particular with one individual who is launching a new business in the US, a small business. And we talked about trying to understand assets that can be financed and assets or use of proceeds that have to come from equity. And we've talked about how to build a CIM and a cash flow model and prove out the business case. And so I think that's been really interesting. And the reason I'm telling you that, guys, is that I'm doing a third one this afternoon. So that should be up by tomorrow. And that'll be focused on writing a business plan / confidential information memorandum / deck. And I think fine tuning on his cash flow model. And then we're going to talk, I think, about putting together a source list of how to start raising this capital. And part of that, James, will be PO financing.
Great.
But I don't know if you could do PO on a startup. Does that? Maybe
typically speaking, any PO lender that I've worked with my years doing PO financing, you want them to have at least done the first transaction, right? Because
you
can go wrong in the first one, right?
Yeah.
You get it all sorted out, and you understand that you can kind of have that proof record. And all of us like sweat equity at the end of the day, right? But can't lend against that, Scott.
Exactly. Thank you, everybody, for listening. James, thank you for joining us. Congratulations at eCapital. Remember, you can hit subscribe, you can hit like, you can do all those sorts of things. And we are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Instagram, every weekday morning at 10:30 Eastern, 8:30 Mountain Time. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you very much.